Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of you who have gathered to join us here today to iChirp Global's webinar on the Filipino people's struggle against corruption, plunder, and fascism. We are grateful that you are spending this time with us to learn more about their struggle and the people during this peasant month, which is always in the month of October. We invite you to, in the chat, make use of the chat, put where you are from, if you are part of an organization, where you are joining us from, so that we can see who is represented here amongst us. And just a reminder of etiquette, we do invite you to keep your program muted during the speakers. There will be an opportunity for question and answer later on in the program. So if something comes up for you as you hear a speaker say something, please be sure you can put that in the chat so it doesn't go away, and we can get to those at the end when all of the speakers have gone. My name is Reverend Sadie Stone. I'm a United Methodist pastor living and serving a church in San Francisco, California. I'm also a third-year law student at University of San Francisco School of Law. So I will be your MC with all of you today, and I look forward to guiding us and introducing all of our wonderful speakers who are here on this beautiful day. So we welcome you again. So in Nepal, Indonesia, and now the Philippines, there have been mass protests happening against corruption. On September 21st, the anniversary of the declaration of martial law by Marcos Sr., over 100,000 Filipinos took to the streets, calling for accountability for dozens of expensive flood control projects that either failed or were never even built in the first place. It brought out university students, the urban poor, church people, and other sectors of the Filipino people victimized by this corruption. During those protests, over 200 people, 91 of whom were youth and children, were arrested by the police. During that protest, police shot and killed Eric Sauber, 35-year-old construction worker and bystander to the protest. As we begin this webinar, we want to give thanks to the Karapatan Human Rights Alliance and those arrested were given legal representation and further supported by a bail fund that raised over 4,000 Canadian dollars. For all of those who donated to that fund to help all of those who were arrested and needed to be bailed out, we thank you for your contributions. It is also October, and the public frustration with the lack of justice for corrupt projects continues. October is significant for several reasons, because it is also Peasant Month in the Philippines. Peasants are subject not only to taxation that funds corruption, but also plunder by landlords and foreign corporations. The plunder of the land in the Philippines has been a key issue of international solidarity missions, or ISMs, visiting peasant communities in the Philippines this past week. And yet delegates on the mission, including from the International Coalition for Human Rights in the Philippines, or iChirp, have faced surveillance and harassment from police and military throughout their trips. Today, we will welcome 4 speakers who will speak on the circumstances on the rally on September 21st, the police brutal response, and also how corruption, repression, and the plunder in the Philippines extends far beyond the flood control projects and is the product of a larger system that heavily impacts peasants in rural areas of the Philippines. It's my honor to introduce our first speaker, Attorney Sol Taulay, the Deputy Secretary of Karapatan Human Rights Alliance, who will speak on the arrests and the brutal police response on that action that happened September 21st. For 14 years, Attorney Sol has served as a full-time staff member with Karapatan, defending clients against cases built on planted evidence. Let's welcome Attorney Sol.
Okay, thank you. Thank you to iSherp for inviting Karapatan, and good morning from Manila, and good day to everyone wherever you are in the world. I am Sol from Karapatan Alliance Philippines, and I'm here to talk about what happened on September 21, the police brutality that was committed to those arrested during the September 21 protest. So can you please turn to the next slide, please? All right. So well, it all started on before on September 21, more than 100,000 Filipinos gathered at Luneta. Uh, well, first to commemorate the declaration of martial law in the Philippines during the Marcos Sr. administration, that was decades back, and also to protest the deep-seated corruption happening in the government. And it all started when Marcos Jr. named around 15 contractors uh, who allegedly were involved in the ghost projects in the Philippines. So it unearthed a lot of corruption issues and further revealed that it's not just the contractors who are involved, but it goes way up to the big politicians in this country. Next slide, please. So, sorry, can you, uh, go back a bit, a slide back? Just want to probably describe what's in the photos. This is during the Senate investigation where contractors were investigated. And you see here, what happened here is that senators were already named who were involved in the flood control project issues and also in cahoots with the contractors. You see here the very famous, the Diskaya couple, and then some of the DPWH or Department of Public Works and Highways officials who were involved in the flood control projects, saying that these were some most of the projects were non-existing, or if existing, they were substandard. And then it also revealed that the projects were the bidding processes were rigged by some of the officials, and it benefited a lot of congressmen and up to way up to the senators, and who knows, way up to the president, of course. Can you turn over to the next slide, please? So this is what's happening in the communities in the Philippines while a lot of corruption issues were unearthed. uh, Ordinary Filipinos endure the impacts of climate change, poor urban planning, and substandard or ghost projects, while flooding remains one of the biggest problems in the country. So photo is in Bulacan when people from the community went outside to protest the corruption issues in the Philippines. Next slide, please. And then close allies and even the first cousin of Marcos Jr., House Speaker Martin Romualdez, was implicated in the flood control scams through billions of budget insertions in the General Appropriations Act. So this prompted the committee hearings and Senate Blue Ribbon hearings. So then the people cannot sit and watch this massive robbery in broad daylight. Protests in universities, workplaces, and communities were held, and this led to the huge protest on September 21 at the Luneta Park, where eventually this police brutality and illegal arrest and detention of individuals happened. Next slide, please. So I was there. I was present at the Luneta rally, and I guess probably Teddy and Ayik too. Uh, there were more than 100,000 who went there. And then after the program finished, we marched going to Mendiola. So around 25,000 individuals joined the march from Luneta to Mendiola. That's about, if I'm not mistaken, 5 kilometers. I'm not sure. Maybe it's a long walk from Luneta. So when the program concluded in Mendiola, it's actually just one speaker. A commotion ensued, and a group of individuals expressed their utter dismay and anger towards the government and clashed with the police. Next slide. The next thing we knew, the Manila Police District, or the MPD, and the SWAT suddenly started arresting individuals, including bystanders, minors, and PWDs, as seen in these photos. You see how they were violently grabbed, arrested. Some of them were uh, hurt. A lot of them were hurt while being arrested. Next slide, please. So the MPD initially said that they arrested 216 individuals, and 91 of which are minors. However, we discovered that more people were arrested when we deployed lawyers of the NUPL, and Karapatan paralegals on the ground, we uh, we discovered that they were not detained all in the MPD, in the Manila Police District station, but they were distributed around several police stations in the vicinity. So then we found out that at least there are 240 individuals who were arrested on that day. Next slide. And then here comes the DILG, Department of Interior and Local Government Secretary John Vic Remulla went to Mendiola, along Mendiola Recto, um, and he claimed that they exercised maximum tolerance. They did not uh, employ violence towards the protesters, but this proved, the next slide will disprove that there is really no maximum tolerance, and this is not maximum tolerance. So a lot of, when I actually saw the arrested individuals on September 22, the following day in the morning, they were severely beaten. A lot of them needed medical attention, and they narrated that they were brought to a tent, a closed tent in Mendiola. They were able to describe the color of the tent, and their accounts were really believable. All of them have a coherent narration of what happened to them. And you see here, some have black and blue eyes. Their heads were beaten, and they have bruises all over their bodies. Next slide, please. And then even Manila Mayor Isko Moreno said that there was no violence employed. So obviously, all of them were lying, because there are a lot of journalists, there are a lot of people who took photos and videos of that incident, and this one proved that um, there is no maximum tolerance. This one is carrying a high-powered firearm. I don't know what it is, but I'm sure when I googled it, it's pretty not it's not a normal firearm, as you see. And this photo is taken from renowned photojournalist Ezra Akayan. He was threatened by these police when he was shooting the incident. Okay, and it's not just him. I think there are a dozen of policemen who were carrying firearms that day, and there was actually a tear gas that was thrown to the crowd. So there are two known deaths that were documented during the September 21 incident, including the stabbing of a minor, I think a 15-year-old boy, and a gunshot of a bystander named Eric Saber. So who is Eric Saber? Eric, can you turn to the next slide? So Eric came from work. He is a construction worker in Pasay City. He's actually going home from work, and he has to pass through the train station in Recto. He stopped by the train station and is about to cross the street. And when he was crossing the street, a bullet hit his neck, which exited through his nape, and he suddenly fell face first. And then the video was caught on camera by some of the netizens. But then, of course, we don't know who uh, pulled the trigger as of this moment. But at that time, it's only the police who were firing several times, according to witnesses, um, to quote pacify the crowd. Next slide, please. So then this was it. The quick response was immediately formed to assist the arrested individuals. They gathered the families, brought food to all the police stations, and helped raise funds for their bail and other needs. I took this photo inside the police station and outside the police station. Outside were the parents pleading the police from the Manila Police District out. This is outside their office, because at this time they don't know where their children are. The police won't confirm if their children were inside the MPD or brought somewhere else. So they were pleading and asking the police to confirm to them if their children are inside. And inside, these are some of the arrested individuals. There were too many. The space is really so small to accommodate all of them. Next slide, please. So then lawyers and paralegals on the ground tirelessly accommodated anyone who needed assistance. So this is us in the premises of the church if I'm not mistaken, they were able to help us secure a place. This at this time, I remember vividly. It was we were having a typhoon here while everything is happening. So these are the lawyers and the paralegals, and we gathered all the relatives to assist them. Next slide, please. So on September 25, uh, 3 days after the illegal arrests, the minors were released, but actually not to their parents directly, but to the social welfare offices. They were distributed into many areas. It was not until I think the last week of September when they were finally turned over to their parents. But then the adults remained in detention. So this is us processing the papers needed for the bail of the adults arrested. So we gathered them in one place and we assisted them to list all the requirements and help them comply with all these bureaucratic things here in the Philippines. Next slide, please. And so I think this is October 1 or October 2, I think, when the most of the arrested individuals were finally bailed out. And this is during the hearing of the cases. So some of the cases were dismissed, but the prosecutor referred for further investigation most of the cases. So it means that the cases are not totally dismissed for the others. Uh, the prosecutor required them to submit counter affidavits to controvert the allegations of the police that they were most of the cases involve direct assault, uh, going to rallies without permit, and destroying properties of the government, and so many other cases that were filed against them. So they need to answer that. So we need to prepare their counter affidavits. A lot of lawyers from the NUPL and those we were friends with help with the drafting of their counter affidavits. Next slide, please. Okay, so this was just last Sunday. Uh, Finally, we were able to gather at least probably most of the relatives and those who were illegally arrested during the September 21 protests, including their lawyers and paralegals who helped them. It's the first time that they met all the paralegals that who assisted them, because at that time they were in jail and they were telling us we don't know who were giving the food, but a lot of food are coming in and we don't know where they're from. So we told them, well, you will meet them. So they were able to meet these people who helped them. So the victims share their harrowing experiences of torture, and they were also able to consult our invited psychologists because some of them have really traumatic experiences, and even the children, the parents told us that even after they were released to the parents, they could not sleep at night, or they were shouting while they were sleeping. So they really need psychological assistance. And then this is I think the hopeful part would be we all agreed to form an organization as victims of massive corruption and police brutality during the September 21 protest. Note that all of these people, or most of them, are unaffiliated when they joined the protest. They don't belong to any organization. They joined because they were mad about the huge corruption issues in the Philippines. So now we were facing all of these challenges together as an organization, and they call it hashtag AKAB, AKAB. In Filipino, that means Alyansa Laban sa Korupsyon at Brutalidad ng Pulis. The English version of this is ACAB, the AKAB, which means Alliance Against Corruption and the Brutality of the Police. So we have the Filipino version, AKAB with a K and not a C. So this is we're now trying to still help and assist all of them. As I've said before, there are still a lot of cases that needs to be addressed with the assistance of the lawyers and the paralegals from Karapatan and other organizations. In fact, some of them, as we speak, will be having their hearing before the prosecutor's office. Yes, it's the same thing. Yeah. All right, next slide. Yes, we think, of course, I will take this opportunity to thank iChirp, all organizations and individuals who offered financial assistance, spoke of the brutality and corruption of the US Marcos regime, and expressed solidarity. This means a lot to us. Of course, this fight is going to be long and arduous, but we believe that uh, with the organized efforts of the Filipino people to fight this deep-seated corruption and systemic corruption that has been happening in the Philippines since time immemorial, we will win this struggle. So thank you very much. I think I have a very limited time, but if you have questions, I am very glad to answer it later. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Attorney Soul, for your work and for that presentation. We really appreciate all of you who are on the grounds doing the hard work, and also for bringing that information to us so that we can also be aware, but also continue to be in solidarity with you from wherever we are situated in the world. Next, it is my honor to invite Teddy Casino, the chairperson of Bayong Ali Kasang Makabayan Alliance, to speak on how those arrests relate to widespread corruption in the Philippines. Teddy has organized workers and fought corruption his whole life, including as Secretary General of Bayan during the 2001 second EDSA uprising, which saw the ousting of President Joseph Estrada for millions of pesos of corruption. So please welcome Teddy.
Thank you, Sadie, and magandang araw sa lahat. Good day to everyone. Thank you for inviting me to this forum, and thank you for your interest in what's going on in the Philippines. So I want to start with a basic but crucial point. Corruption in the Philippines is not simply a matter of bad officials, weak institutions, or a failure to comply with the law. The ongoing scandal involving billions of overpriced, substandard, and ghost projects, flood control projects, is just actually the tip of the iceberg. If you think of it, it's loose change. If we consider the decades of plunder committed by corrupt public officials in the service of local oligarchs and foreign monopoly capitalists. Corruption in the Philippines is so deep, widespread, and systematic because it is designed that way. It is rooted in the very structures of power in society. So behind every major corruption scandal lies something deeper: bureaucrat capitalism, fascism, and imperialism working hand in hand. When we say bureaucrat capitalism, we mean the use of state power by politicians and officials to enrich themselves, their families, their friends, and their clients. It's the way government is run like a private enterprise. So instead of genuine public servants, we have capitalists in the bureaucracy using their positions to corner contracts, accumulate wealth through kickbacks and bribes, strengthen their political dynasties, and serve the interests of local oligarchs and especially foreign capital in exchange for personal gain. This, this bureaucrat capitalist class is not separate from the big landlords, the comprador bourgeoisie, and political dynasties. In fact, they are one and the same. They are entrenched at the highest levels of government, business, and politics. Consider, for example, how the three richest businessmen in the Philippines, and this is in the Forbes list, Enrico Razon, Manuel Villar, and Ramon Ang, bankroll and control the three biggest political parties in the country: the National Unity Party of Razon, the Nationalista Party of Villar, and the National People's Coalition of Ang. Together, these three political parties control 42% of the Senate, 26% of the House of Representatives, and 33% of the governors. Consider also how the political dynasties that dominate local politics also happen to own the biggest tracts of land or the biggest businesses in their areas. So you see, corruption, this is not incidental. It is the very mode of accumulation of bureaucrat capitalists. It's how they get rich and stay in power. But this bureaucrat capitalist class, they don't act alone. Their power is tied to and dependent on foreign imperialist interests. From colonial times to today, foreign powers have needed local agents to maintain control over our resources, markets, and labor, and to suppress the people's struggle for democracy and national liberation. And that role is played by our bureaucrat capitalist elite. In fact, we can trace the rise of the Philippine political elite to the American colonial period, when US authorities co opted the landed and educated class. These were the Spanish era, what they call the Principalia, the Ilustrados, and the local caciques, to govern on behalf of the new colonial masters. So the US colonial government decided that only property owning, educated men who swore allegiance to the US could vote or hold office. So this limited suffrage entrenched political power in the hands of a very few families, probably not even 1% of the population. And this established a patronage based, clan dominated political system that burdens us till this day. The dominance of political dynasties, who control more than 80% of national and local positions, is a legacy of this imperialist imposition. Bureaucrat capitalists have facilitated foreign investments that exploited our labor and natural resources, signed treaties and agreements that undermined national sovereignty, like the Basis Agreement, approved overpriced foreign funded infrastructure projects, and borrowed billions from foreign lenders, burdening future generations with debt. Consider how, during the Ramos and Arroyo administrations, the United States government, through the USAID's Accelerating Growth, Investment, and Liberalization with Equity, it's called the Agile program, embedded foreign consultants in various government agencies to push trade and investment liberalization, privatization, deregulation, fiscal and tax measures, and other neoliberal economic policies. This led, for example, to the privatization of the power industry, increased taxes, and liberalization of banking laws, all favoring foreign monopoly interests. In exchange, bureaucrat capitalists get their cut through corruption. This is why corruption is not just a domestic issue, it is part of the imperialist system of control. It keeps our economy weak, dependent, and subservient to foreign powers while enriching a tiny local elite. But this system is unstable because the people eventually resist. Whenever anger against corruption, exploitation, and inequality grows, the state responds not with reform, but with repression. And this is where fascism comes in. Fascism is the iron fist of bureaucrat capitalism and imperialism. It is used to silence critics, activists, whistleblowers, and journalists, attack mass movements and progressive organizations, red tag and criminalize the opposition, militarize communities, especially where foreign and elite economic interests are at stake. History has showed this again and again. During the dictatorship of Ferdinand Marcos Jr., Sr., massive plunder went hand in hand with state terror, of course, with US backing. Under authoritarian administrations, corruption thrives behind a shield of fear, impunity, and militarization. Fascism is the mechanism used by bureaucrat capitalists and imperialists to protect corruption and in pursuit of their selfish interests. This is precisely why the US has kept a tight leash on the armed forces of the Philippines and the Philippine National Police, providing it with all the funding, equipment, and supplies, training, and doctrine it requires to suppress the people's movement for national liberation and social emancipation. This entrenched system bleeds the nation dry. Every peso stolen through corruption is a peso taken from the people, from schools, hospitals, farmers, workers, and communities. Instead, public funds go to overpriced or ghost projects, favored contractors, foreign funded projects that benefit oligarchs and their imperialist partners, debt servicing rather than development. Of course, a lot of the money goes to the pockets of the politicians. As a result, our people remain poor, infrastructure remains weak, and the country remains dependent on foreign capital. All these is not an accident. This is the logic of imperialism and bureaucrat capitalism to keep us dependent, controlled, and exploitable. And so, this is why a genuine fight against corruption cannot be separated from the fight against fascism, bureaucrat capitalism, and imperialism. Any serious anti corruption movement must target big plunderers in the bureaucracy, not just petty offenders. Expose how corruption is linked to foreign control. Demand people's participation and real transparency in budgeting, procurement, and planning. Defend press freedom and whistleblowers, including the right to, to express and to air their grievances. And push for structural changes like national industrialization, genuine agrarian reform, and national sovereignty. We must expose corruption not just as simple theft, but as a political weapon of an elite serving foreign masters. And this fight cannot be won by relying on the same political elite who profit from corruption. It requires a broad unity of workers, peasants, youth, women, professionals, and all democratic forces. It needs organized campaigns and people's audits of public funds and projects. It means defending spaces for free speech and protest and sustained mass struggles that challenge not only the corrupt officials, but the system that empowers them. It requires the downfall of the bureaucrat capitalist state and the establishment of a genuine people's democratic government. So, friends and comrades, corruption is not a bug in the system. It is the system, a system built on bureaucrat capitalism, enforced through fascism, and serving imperialism. That's why the fight against corruption must be a fight to dismantle the bureaucrat capitalist rule, a fight to resist fascism and state repression, and a fight to assert national sovereignty and break free from imperialist domination. Most importantly, there can be no real change unless power is in the hands of the people. Let us turn outrage into organized action. Let us build a movement strong enough to uproot this rotten system and build a just, democratic, and sovereign Philippines. So thank you very much. Mabuhay ang sambayan ng Pilipino. Long live international solidarity. Salamat po.
Salamat. Thank you, Teddy, so much for that presentation and the importance and understanding of bureaucratic capitalism and the way that the ruling elites, it works to serve the ruling elites and foreign interests, and the way that the United States and others are complicit in allowing for that to continue. Our next speaker is Aik Casilao, a peasant organizer and former representative from the Anak Powys party list. Ariel or Aik is just returning from one of the ISM trips, the International Solidarity Missions. And at the 2024 International People's Tribunal in Belgium, Aik provided testimony on the torture and the extrajudicial murder of NDFP peace consultant Randy Achanis. So welcome, Aik.
Thank you, Saidi, and good morning to our friends and comrades all over the world. Um, Thank you for this opportunity to share the very and the most exploited class here in the Philippines, the peasant class, the farmers, the fisher folks, the farm workers, or the agricultural workers. are bearing the brunt of a very exploitative and corrupt system. Let me start by stating that the fact from beginning from the budgeting, from the deliberation of the national budget in 2024 for the fiscal year 2025, the agricultural sector received only or was appropriated only a measly 2.5% out of the 6.4 trillion pesos. From that appropriation share of the national budget compared to the 33% allocated for the infrastructure project for the Department of Public Works and Highways, there is really a huge gap, a huge misprioritization of budget allocation. Philippines is still an agricultural based country. Uh, Many of the population of Filipinos are the farming communities and farming population, yet they don't have the means and the tools to produce food for the Filipino people, like land, farm inputs, farm implements. These are very costly and very expensive production in the point of view for the farmers. Yet they don't get the bigger chunk of the national appropriation during budget appropriation or during the budget time. When the 2025 national budget was approved, and yet the appropriation for the agriculture sector remained the very least 2.5% of the share. And here comes flood control project, 500 billion. And now, recently, exposés point out that even the Department of Agriculture, the farm to pocket roads, no, not the farm to market roads, but the farm to pocket roads to the pockets of members of Congress and senators who uh, propose construction of farm to market roads, yet are the subject also of a corrupt practices, substandard like Teddy Casino sharing, substandard materials were used. Worse, these are ghost projects also. Only in name, they were produced in name, the location, but there was no actual project made from the farm to the market construction of roads. And when these effects to our environment, when floods or when typhoons occur here in the Philippines, since we are regularly visited by by typhoons, rice fields sunk, flooded, no production. The capital borrowed by the farmer would be an added debt in the next few months, and they will again borrow for the next capitalization for the next planting season. And this cycle has been a repeated, has been a regular cycle, even though government knew that typhoons really hit or pass the area of responsibility of the Philippines, the Philippine area of responsibility, yet because of corrupted or budget for the flood control were pocketed by politicians, government officials from the Department of Public Works, and from private contractors or private entities. The magnitude of effect during the impact of this flooding, these typhoons, um, is basically one on the agriculture sector. In 2024, around 13 billion pesos of agriculture was damaged. The agriculture sector suffered around 13 billion because of 20 or more typhoons that occurred. Here, in the middle of the year, as of June 2025, around 6.8 billion in the agricultural sector were already documented as damaged crops, damaged rice fields, corn fields, vegetable fields because of series of typhoons that visited the Philippines. This has been an occurrence, a regular occurrence, we demand, while the farmers demand subsidy, the farmers demand genuine land reform, land distribution, uh, tools for production. But when we demand such, we conduct such protest actions. Um, the response of government and the state security forces are militarization, harassment, red tagging. Community leaders, peasant leaders in our localities were being targeted for trump-up charges, abduction, and worse, physical elimination and political assassination of regional and local leaders. That happened even under the watch of Marcos Jr. Um, Especially now that the 2026 budget has been deliberated and approved in the lower house, still the agriculture sector only was appropriated with 3.2%. Out of the 6.8 trillion pesos, the Department of Agriculture was only appropriated with 300 billion pesos, or more or less 3.2% of the total pie of the national budget for the 2026. And again, despite pronouncement from President Marcos Jr. that there will be no more flood control project, uh, farm to market roads will be directly provided for under the Department of Agriculture. There is no guarantee. There is no assurance since corruption is deeply seated in the system. It has been a cancer within the corrupt system, and definitely corrupt officials and the current sitting members of Congress, Senate, and government agencies like the Department of Public Works and the Highways would not allow that their very source of profit and their very source of wealth will be stopped in an instant. They will circumvent ways, and they will look for other ways to profit from this appropriation, from this budget. And again, th- th- this might be a focus on one aspect like the flood control, the farm to market roads. But since the infrastructure department or the Department of Public Works and Highways remained as the top priority for the budget appropriation for the fiscal year 2026. It is inevitable, and it is far from a very clean and a very transparent transaction in the future. And now, because we are also commemorating or celebrating the Peasant Month, the struggles, the different victories and the struggles and assertions of peasant communities all over the Philippines for a genuine agrarian reform, for the true genuine land distribution. Part of our activities was the International Solidarity Mission in Negros, in Rizal, in Mindoro, uh, where despite our assertion, despite our presence of international participants and delegates, uh, state security forces, local government units in cahoots with the transnational and the big landlord corporations are the ones doing the violations to human rights, civil and political, or peaceful conduct of the mission. And in fact, it is in our Atmos findings, particularly the team that I went to in Negros, that the Department of Environment and Natural Resources, the company, the Hacienda Asia Plantation Incorporated, who is responsible for the 6,000 hectares oil palm plantation expansion in Candoni, in Negros, and the state security forces, the 15th Infantry Battalion, is responsible for the massive, grievous violations to economic, political, civil, and sociocultural rights, the indigenous rights of our indigenous population there in Kanduni, who was deprived of their ancestral domain. Their claim and their lands were grabbed by the Happy Corporation or the Hacienda Asia Plantation Incorporated. The farmers who, for more than 50 years, stealing the land, were forcibly dislocated from these lands because of bulldozers enraging in their communities and damage the lands that supposedly are for rice fields and for vegetables and corn fields. Um, Thus, the more we are challenged to mobilize in the coming days, we will be having a week-long camp out in the Department of Agriculture, Department of Agrarian Reform, the central offices of the DA and the Department of Agrarian Reform here, starting today. We will establish our camp outside the Department of Agrarian Reform. Uh, Peasants, farmers, fisher folks, and farm workers all over the country from Central Luzon, Southern Tagalog, Negros, and Bicol and Ilocos will be joining in our peasant long or week long campaign outside of the Department of Agrarian Reform. And there will be a daily activities inside within the camp and the different government agencies. And it will culminate on October 21st, a big mobilization as part of our anti-corruption, as part of linking the issues of landlessness, feudalism, to bureaucrat capitalism and imperialism. We will be having a major mobilization on the 21st of October, and thousands from the same efforts that we had in September 21, we will replicate on October 21 the same condemnation, the same indignation from the people who are victimized by this corrupt system. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Aik, for sharing the struggles of peasants and agricultural workers and for also spending time in the ISM. We are going to now move to a question and answering session with our speakers before we move to the last speaker. So there are a couple of different ways that we're going to do this. One, we already have some questions that have come up in the chat, so I'm going to address those and take those first. So you can continue to put questions in the chat. Anything that came up for you, put them in the chat, and then we can raise them here. Or if you would like to ask the question yourself, you can also raise your hand and we can try to recognize you that way. But Teddy, I have the first question that I want to direct towards you. We had a question about how iChirp all over can push back against the absence of flood controls. And so do you have suggestions for what international solidarity allies can do in terms of pushing back against some of these issues that we've seen popping up in the Philippines?
Well, I guess supporting groups involved in the current campaign against corruption would be a big help. Support can be, anything from political support, material support, financial support, because this is going to be a long struggle. Uh, this is not the first time that these kinds of scandals erupted. In 2013, we had what we call the Million People March against corruption. Uh, and during that time, it was the fertilizer fund program that was the major scandal. So one of the operators were arrested. Initially, three members of the Senate were put under arrest, but eventually they were released and their cases have been slowly dismissed through the years. But what that showed is that the fight against corruption cannot be a one-shot affair. And it's not going to end by just an government, uh, showing us that one or two people can be held accountable, and that's that. So this will be a long drawn struggle. And we're actually hoping that the issue will go beyond flood control, that it will be an issue of bureaucrat capitalism, that the issue, that what will be uh, at stake here is the current elite political system. And we are hoping that people will realize that unless that changes, every few years we will be hounded by these kinds of scandals. So basically, uh, support for the national democratic struggle is really crucial. Uh, and that includes calling on the United States government and other governments supporting this administration to withdraw its support from such a corrupt regime. The lifeblood of the Marcos government, one of the lifebloods is the U.S. government right now, with its renewed partnership against China, and that is part of that props up the current corrupt political structure. So the political struggle against imperialist control and domination in the Philippines, the political struggle against bureaucrat capitalism, uh, and the struggle for national democracy should be part of this. We want the fight against corruption to be translated into these more fundamental movements or struggles, and international solidarity will play a big role in that, supporting the national democratic and the national liberation struggles in the country. So there's many ways to do that, and I'm sure you know more about how to support the struggle than probably I do.
Great. Thank you so much. Our second question is probably, I think, directed towards Aik. It is about the peasant struggle. So, Aik, are you able to talk about some of the victories of the peasant struggle currently, especially in light of the 40-year anniversary and celebration of KMP?
Yes, Sadie, in the past years, there had been victories in the assertion of peasant communities, despite legal haggles, despite disputed cases in the Supreme Court or even in the Department of Agrarian Reform. Um, we have meta-legally asserted our right to till the land by launching bungkalan or land cultivation actions. In the Visayas or in Mindanao, we call it balik uma, go back to the land and till the land. Despite legal burden, no? Despite legal complications, we managed to successfully till these lands still controlled and owned by landlords or even transnational corporation or agribusiness ventures. Um, we have documented more than 100 plus bungkalan in the Philippines in the last within the administration of Marcos Jr. Um, Particularly in Hacienda Lucita, for the longest time since 2018, where uh, our local communities and local peasant organizations were harassed, militarized. We managed to regain our strength in Hacienda Luisita. From 11 chapters within the Hacienda, we managed to uh, rebuild 8 barangay chapters of Ambala, which is the main local organization, and there had been 5 active bungkalan or land cultivation actions now happening within the Hacienda Luisita state. Not only in Central Luzon, but also in Batangas, in Southern Tagalog, in Negros, where we came from yesterday. Uh, Despite the aggressive encroachment of the Candoni oil palm plantation and militarization, harassment, the resolve of the farmers and indigenous people in Candoni to assert their right to land, to till the land, uh, is very present, and that's why we we call this we were very happy, we were very inspired that despite the hardships they experienced, despite the harassment, militarization, the resolve of the farmers and the indigenous peoples communities in Candoni remained very strong, and thus they needed more support from the national and from the international organizations and networks.
Thank you so much for sharing some of those victories and the work that you all have been doing. We have one last question before we move on to our final speaker. This question comes from one of our participants who I believe is out of Puerto Rico. And they are wondering that since the election of Donald Trump, and I don't know if they mean like Donald Trump 1 or this most recent Donald Trump 2 era, what has been the situation of the militarization of the Philippines, and how has this impacted appropriation of funds for other necessary programs? Are there military maneuvers that impact communities? She notes in Puerto Rico, there have been increased military maneuvers that are having negative impacts on communities. So, do you notice a difference between militarization under Trump, or is it similar under all administrations in the United States? And this can be for any of our speakers who feel like they can answer.
Sadie, I can give a short answer. Well, it's basically the same. Militarization still exists in many communities, especially in rural communities in the country. We have documented, Karapatan have documented a lot of violation of international humanitarian law or IHL violations, which includes bombing of communities, which includes hamleting of communities, killings, arbitrary arrest and detention, and a lot more violations. And of course, there is a huge role of the funding of the U.S. government to the Philippine military of armaments, which are being used against the movement here in the Philippines, and that's very evident in a lot of human rights violations that Karapatan has documented throughout the years. So it's whether it's Trump version 1 or version 2, it's basically the same violations that we documented.
Yeah, just to add to that, um, during his first term in office, when Trump visited the Philippines, one of his very striking statements was that he said that the Philippines was the best piece of real estate from a military perspective. Of course, he was talking about China and how crucial the Philippines would be in US's efforts to contain China. So now on his second term, I think he is, you know, uh, making true to that idea of making the Philippines the best piece of real estate for the military for the U.S. military. Following up on what Joe Biden did, which was to strengthen the Philippine-U.S. military alliance with the Marcos administration. Trump has now deployed missile systems in the Philippines. I think there are two types of missile systems. A new ammunition factory is planned to be built along the corridor facing the West Philippine Sea, and also an economic industrial corridor, which we assume would be more of a military industrial corridor that would link the northern Philippines to the former US military bases, is now being formed. And we have nine military uh, front bases called the EDCA sites, Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement sites. And three of those are facing the Taiwan Strait. So I think the Philippines, as a launching pad for US military interventions and aggression in this part of the world, uh, has risen to uh, a very high level under Trump. Um, and that is in relation to the US's effort to contain China, and that is dragging the Philippines into this war between the two most powerful countries in the world today. What is the impact on the local communities? Well, as far as the military exercises are concerned, for example, whenever there are military exercises, uh, the fisher folk are not allowed to fish, are not allowed to go out to to catch fish, to fish. Yeah. And the travel of residents are restricted in those areas for so-called security concerns. Now, mind you, these are not these exercises. For example, in 2026, the planned number of exercises are 500. So there's even more exercises than the number of days in a year. So it's that numerous. And on a day-to-day basis, practically, there are military exercises every day, even more than every day, ongoing, involving thousands of US troops. And if you also include the alliance, so you have Japanese troops coming in, Australian troops coming in, even Canadian troops coming in. This really makes the Philippines um, a launching pad and uh, a source of instability, and that is why China also is getting more aggressive against the Philippines, seeing the country as a threat.
Thank you. And Aik, I saw your hand up earlier. Did you also want to add
Yeah,
anything?
yes, I did. Very brief. Noticeably, the U.S. military aid increased. The procurement and donation of military armaments or weapons and materials were increased. The missiles, the bombs used in bombing communities, area bombardments, drone bombings occurred in Cagayan Valley, in central Luzon, were from the U.S. Military industrial complex, or from the U.S. government support or aid to the Philippines. Aside from what Teddy said, an increased EDCA sites were approved during several meetings with President Trump and President Marcos Jr. And not only that, the allies of US and like Japan, Australia, Canada are also doing agreements, exclusive agreements or enhanced military agreements that will result eventually to becoming a war zone, eventual war zone, and Philippines would be the cannon fodder, or we will be bait, or we will be the pawns to this aggression by the U.S. military.
Thank you all so much for that thorough answer. And I think it's important for all of us to learn about the ways that our imperialist countries, regardless of what country we may be coming from today, is complicit in arming the military or having war exercises in the Philippines. It's been a long going issue. This is not something that is new under Trump. It is not something that is a recent issue. It's historic that the Philippines has always been considered by the US especially to be a strategic place for war exercises and war strategy. It's been true since the world wars. And so it's really important that we are aware of what our tax dollars are being used for, and that we use the leveraging power we have in our own countries to try to prevent more military funding being sent over to the Philippines. You'll note over in the chat that Drew put a resource in the chat that iChirp has developed around US-led military for those who want more information about the how the United States specifically has built up the Philippines and the military connection there. It's a primer called Not Your War Game Zone Primer. So there's some information there that you can find more information about how the military connection is really a problematic aspect and has been a long time campaign of iChirp. So thank you all again for your questions. And we are going to move on to our last speaker, who is Peter Murphy. Peter Murphy is the chairperson of the International Coalition for Human Rights in the Philippines and a member of iChirp's Global Council. He offers the perspective from the Solidarity Movement. Peter is based in Australia, and he offers to us what we can do as individuals and communities outside of the Philippines. So please welcome Peter.
Thank you very much, Sadie. So magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat there in the Philippines. And greetings to everybody taking part. It's a really good attendance. I'm speaking to you from the land of the Gadigal people in Sydney, Australia, and I pay respect to their elders, past and present. Thank you very much for this invitation to speak here about the connection between the massive flood project scandal, the violent state repression, and the lives and struggles of the millions of Filipino peasant farmers and Indigenous peoples. Right now, we have about 45 people undertaking an international solidarity mission in southern Tagalog and the Visayas, and I'll try to convey their experiences so far to elaborate on the realities of life of the Filipino peasants and Indigenous peoples. So in Mindoro, soon after they arrived, the ISM delegates reported surveillance from unidentified individuals on motorcycles, as well as aerial drone surveillance of their campsite. And they also reported targeted surveillance with dozens of soldiers or police near their campsite. In Rizal, ISM delegates reported persistent surveillance from 6 soldiers from the 80th Infantry Battalion, staying within 20 meters of their accommodation in Sitio Nayon, Barangay Santa Ynez in Tanay. When the soldiers demanded everyone's names and IDs, the team invoked the Data Privacy Act, and after negotiation, only the mission's official representatives and a barangay official provided their identity. In the Eastern Visayas, the ISM team reported surveillance at their hotel in Tacloban City in Leyte by people who admitted that they were military intelligence officers. And delegates staying at a hotel in Manila also reported surveillance by an individual who also introduced himself as a military intelligence officer. The communities explained to the ISM delegates their problems about land grabbing. That was the reason for all of this. So in Occidental Mindoro, since May last year, the Mangyan Iraya people of Sitio Malatabaco in Abra de Ilog were forcibly displaced by Peaceland Corporation, a real estate developer known for repeated cases of land grabbing across Mindoro. The company has really violated their human rights. In Rizal, the Dumagat Remontado people warmly welcomed the delegates and shared their community's history and challenges, and sparked strong solidarity bonds between themselves and the international allies. The looming threat to the Sierra Madre, which is the home of the Dumagat Remontado people, is the Kaliwa Dam. It's pushed under Duterte's build, build, build agenda and is financed by China Energy Engineering. It's proceeding without genuine, free, prior, and informed consent. By 2027, its reservoir is predicted to flood 113 hectares of forest, displacing 8 villages and 1,465 families, forcing evacuations, destroying livelihoods, and also erasing vital cultural, traditional, and spiritual ties to the land. One of the ISM delegates, Sharanya Nayak from India, from the Indigenous Peoples Land, Life and Knowledge Collective, commented, "We are here because we really believe there is an imminent need to globalize resistance. If they can globalize capitalism, they can globalize militarization, then we as people across different countries can globalize resistance." In Negros, participants from various sectors visited Candoni, as Ayik has just related to us, to engage the local communities, to document human rights violations, and to hear firsthand the struggles of farmers affected by the palm oil plantation project. This is a 2 billion peso project. That's roughly 34.3 million US dollars, invested by Hacienda Asia Plantation Incorporation in this palm oil plantation. It threatens to displace over 300 farming households, including the Ati indigenous community. It would convert farmlands and forests into monoculture estates. Despite a cease and desist order on the project, the operation actually continues. For farmers and indigenous people, this is a fight to defend their land, livelihood, and dignity. In the eastern Visayas, ISM participants visited a farming community in Marabut, Samar, on October 12. The local Farmers Association welcomed them and shared the challenges they face, including scarce farming equipment, unpredictable weather, soaring input costs, and low selling prices for their palay, copra, and other crops. The small-scale farmers are in deep economic distress. These long-standing issues are worsened by the lack of government relief and compensation, especially for the frequent typhoons and floods. One of the farmers in Mindoro is William, a 60-year-old person, who said to the delegates, "I am grateful that many have come here to Mindoro to stand with us and know more about our situation. On our own, it would be hard to tear down the barriers, so we need their support and guidance. I thank those from the other countries who planned for this and came here to Mindoro, ancestral land of the Mangyan Iraya tribe." So these brief insights from the ISM first of all demonstrate that the US Marcos Jr. regime is paranoid about international interests in the dire situation in the countryside, and show that the farmers and indigenous communities are under routine, intense military surveillance. Second, across a significant part of the country, these communities are being hit by land-grabbing corporations and mega projects like the Kaliwa Dam, pressures that they are resisting. And third, the neoliberal economic policies of the regime, which allow corporations to dominate both the inputs and the outputs of farming, are crushing the livelihoods of these communities. And last, these communities really welcome genuine support from the international community, as we have been trying to do. Those political and corporate figures who ripped off billions in the fake flood control projects, confident that they could get away with it, are part of a system of plundering the Filipino people, which also allows for plundering the land and resources and exploiting the labor of the peasants and indigenous peoples and workers. It provides impunity for state violence to repress any protest. That is what the US in particular and the broad international community of governments has been propping up and protecting for many decades. ICHIRP urges all the organisations linked to this international solidarity mission to mobilise their networks to take action in the rest of October and ongoing. Here are a few things you could do which will really help. First, promote the findings of the International Solidarity Mission and the conference they will participate in on October 16-17. It is the Asia-Pacific People's Conference Against Climate Imperialism and Militarism. The aim is to unite environmental defenders across the region to expose US-led militarism, imperialist exploitation, and local elite collusion. The conference will chart a path towards climate justice, genuine peace and defense of sovereignty, and amplify the struggles of the poor, the indigenous peoples, women, youth, and all those on the front lines. The next one is October 21. That's only 6 days away. It's a global day of solidarity with the peasant struggle against land grabbing in the Philippines to amplify the Lakbayan, the People's March, in support of Filipino peasants and indigenous peoples. This day of action, on the anniversary of the Marcos Senior Fake Land Reform Program, will bring together farmers from all over the Philippines to put their demands in Manila. And I think Ayek has really explained that in a bit of detail. We are calling on solidarity allies all over the world to respond with protest actions in support at Philippine embassies, consulates, and other targets. We are calling on members, the third one, we are calling on members and friends of ICHIRP to fundraise to support the peasant movement in their October activities, especially support the October 21st Lakbayan, and also the staffing costs for hosting the International Solidarity Mission. Fourth, for information updates on the ISM and conference, please follow the social media accounts of people rising for climate justice. And Drew has been putting these links in the chat. And fifth, follow the social media sites of Kilusang Magbabukid ng Pilipinas, that's KMP, and Tanggal Magsasaka, Defend Peasants. for information and analysis on the issues and updates on the peasant struggle. And finally, follow iChirp's own social media accounts for regular coverage of the issues and political education. So just going back there, it's the conference on October 16, 17, the Lakbayan on October 21, fundraising, and then follow the information on the social media from this campaign immediately and also from iChirp longer term. So that's it. Magkaisa sa mga magsasaka at mga katutubo. Mabuhay ang international ng pagkakaisa. Long live international solidarity. Maraming salamat po sa iyon lahat.
Thank you so much, Peter. And thank you especially to all of our speakers from the Philippines today, Teddy, Aik, and Attorney Sol. We thank you again for the inspiring and insights that you have shared with us. The time for solidarity is more critical now than ever. So if you would like to stand in solidarity with the Filipino people, I will remind you again of what Peter just told you. We're going to just repeat it so that you remember. Please remember to follow the People Rising for Climate Justice, PRCJ, Instagram or Facebook account, or both, as well as the iChirp Global account if you are not already doing so. And those links were just put in the chat. So please be sure you can find updates happening all the time. We've also shared links in the chat for both. And we also invite you to join our mailing list. And again, I just want to reiterate what Peter has just said about our calls to action for this month. Many are coming up very soon. Please follow and reshare all of the updates that are happening on the current ISMs. There are several teams of people who are currently in the Philippines on international solidarity missions. We are getting reports of harassments and surveillance. But more important, we look forward to hearing about the reports and the findings that they are learning in their people-to-people solidarity as they are all over into different places in the Philippines. Again, we invite you to mobilize on October 21st in your local area in solidarity with the peasants in the Philippines. And finally, the most important is build long-standing people-to-people solidarity. That is the work that we are called to be in solidarity with the people in the Philippines and with all of the efforts that are happening there. So if you would like to be involved with the local solidarity movement, you can email the secretary at ichirp.net. And again, we will put that in the chat and we will help connect you with the local organization or partner. The great thing about iChirp is that we literally have chapters all over the world in many, many countries and continents all over the world. So wherever you are located, we can help connect you so that you can continue to stay updated in campaigns and continue to be an ally to the Filipino people. And again, we want to thank you for attending this webinar. The issue of corruption in the Philippines will not disappear without mass action by Filipino people, and we are invited to mobilize alongside them in the coming months by raising funds, by raising awareness, by raising international solidarity. So to close, as iChirp, we say support the Filipino people's struggle for genuine land reform and stop the killings in the Philippines, end aid to the Philippine military and police, and support for the U.S.-backed Marcos Jr. regime, and support for corruption and plunder in the Philippines. Long live international solidarity. Thank you.